Thank you, Sharon, very much for inviting me, Institute of Medicine. I'd like to comment on what I've heard from my rather unique perspective as an internet entrepreneur and a cancer survivor. I was very impressed by the challenges that I heard about sharing data from clinical trials and the willingness of those in this community to try to overcome them. But there are two things that I didn't hear, which is, first, a compelling use case, a killer app, as we say in Silicon Valley, that would cause a mass movement to get a lot of people to share data for an important purpose. And secondly, something that has hair on fire urgency for patients. So putting those two together, I'd like to ask what it is that we can do starting today, not 2 years of research or studying standards or what have you, that can have a big impact on patient health and do it with the urgency that patients are demanding. And then the second thing that's related to that is what is it that each of us in this room can do to promote that mission? So I would say that at this point, we're at a unique moment in time, at the dawn of personalized genomic medicine, especially in cancer, and with the rush of next-generation sequencing coming into the clinic. We just don't have the data that we need in order to be able to use this information to make informed clinical choices. And clinical trials are useful only up to a point because of the fact that we're now recognizing that cancer is hundreds of diseases. So many of the trials that have happened in the past have had, done population statistics on groups of patients with hundreds of different diseases. And as we look ahead with hundreds, perhaps thousands of types of cancer and hundreds of targeted therapies in development that have to get used in cocktails, there's just not enough patients or time or money or specimens in order to be able to systematically and randomly execute that. And beyond that, 95% of patients don't get seen in clinical trials at all. So we have to use as our starting point capturing longitudinal information about patients one at a time. And the lesson that I would point to is the experiments, the thousands of experiments that get done every day in oncology by 30,000 oncologists who are trying to do something to desperately save the lives of patients. And none of that information is getting captured to first order because, as was pointed out, there's not enough validation in one case to be able to make a point. So in order to capture the data from every patient, I'm going to suggest that we implement IOM's vision of a rapid learning community in cancer as the driving application, to be able to capture the genomic data and clinical data from every cancer patient, from every conceivable source, from clinical trials, of course, from electronic health records, and from the patients themselves, because they're the ones who have the natural instincts, the incentives to share, which no one else does. So we get started with them, and we use that data to create molecular models of subtypes of cancer and how to treat them. And then we get the data on patients whose treatments are informed by those models to continually update them so that, for example, if there are groups of patients in a subtype that respond and others don't respond, that subtype gets split and the research continues. As an implementation of this idea, we can start by getting patients to donate their data, as they can get access to it under HIPAA. And in terms of as more and more genomic data is getting into the medical records, that's going to become available under HIPAA. And we have to provide incentives to those patients to go through the effort of getting their data. And those incentives are straightforward. At the beginning, alerts, news, information from experts on what can be done by them in order to get better outcomes for their particular patients and for their particular disease, and most importantly, data from patients like them, how those patients were treated, what outcomes they had, so they can make informed choices. And then as far as research is concerned, I think the incentives are fairly straightforward. Full transparency was noted. I would say full transparency on what happens to my data, and the assurance that if something is found with my data, that I will be among the first to know about it, the first to be able to get in line for clinical trials and studies that will be a benefit from them. The advantage of knowing that there are thousands of eyeballs and thousands of machine learning applications that are going to be able to inform my treatment. So I'm going to put that data, or recommend putting that data, into the cloud. Every patient gets a URL to point to their data, and once that's done, that's going to unleash an ecosystem of third-party applications, services, and what have you, that will build on that data and offer all kinds of third-party value in ways that we can't even anticipate, but that will have dramatic impact on health and on shortening the time that it will take for patients to get access to the best medicines. And I just point to some of the examples that John Wilbank said, but bring that to bear on this particular thing. And then my final comment is that in terms of building out that ecosystem, everyone in this room has something to contribute, and everyone on the web for that matter as well. So pharma companies have trial data, which they can contribute, and for good reason, because once they do, they can then have access to the patients with very specific subtypes, which they can use to accelerate their trial recruitment. Labs can get business out of this in exchange for being able to quickly and economically genotype tumors and put that data into the commons under common consents of the kind that John Wilbanks talked about. Insurance companies can get access to information, the data that they need, knowing who to treat and who not to treat. And the IT companies that are here will have plenty of business hooking everyone up to this commons. So, and government regulations, of course, can be moved and can be expanded in order to be able to to facilitate this. For example, if we can get a requirement for CLIA certification to be that the data is made available to patients, that would be a big step forward. So I'm going to just conclude by saying that we have an opportunity to seize this unique moment as all of the world is focusing on personalized medicine and next generation going into the clinic, and that data is needed. We start with the patients because they have the incentives and the urgency. We can drive an ecosystem of applications and services, and now is the time to get started. And I'm going to just turn to Sharon and say the reason that we're all here is to do something for patients, and you're the organizer. With your help, let's do it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.